Welcome to Storied Audio. Natalie and Lucas weren't enemies, not exactly. They weren't rivals either. They were something stranger, a constant friction that sparked whenever they were in the same room. Their friends joked that they acted like fighting siblings, which only made Natalie bristle harder. It wasn't that Lucas was a bad person. He was just infuriating. Too sarcastic, too smug, too quick to assume she was wrong about everything. And she, admittedly, was too quick to snap back. Their arguments had become a kind of sport, predictable, exhausting, and weirdly expected. The day everything changed began like any other summer Saturday. Their friend group had gathered for a backyard barbecue at Jenna's house. The air smelled like charcoal and cut grass, and sunlight filtered through the trees. Natalie had arrived early to help set up, and she'd poured her heart into arranging a centerpiece for the picnic table. It wasn't extravagant, but it mattered to her. A ring of wildflowers she'd picked that morning, a few floating candles, and a small glass bowl filled with polished stones she'd collected on a childhood trip with her parents. It was sentimental, delicate, and beautiful. She stepped back to admire it just as Lucas arrived, late of course, carrying a tray of drinks and wearing that infuriating half-smile that made her want to throw something. "Wow," he said, glancing at the table. "You really went all out for a picnic." "It's called effort," she snapped. "You should try it sometime." He smirked and moved past her, too quickly, too carelessly. His elbow clipped the edge of the table. The glass bowl wobbled, tipped, and shattered on the patio stones. Water splashed across the table. Flowers scattered. The candles rolled into the grass. Natalie froze. Lucas froze. Their friends burst into laughter. Jenna laughed and said, "You two are ridiculous. Seriously, you fight like brother and sister." Natalie felt heat rush to her face. She spun away before Lucas could stammer out whatever apology he was about to offer. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to look at him. She didn't want to feel the sting of tears threatening to rise. But he followed her anyway. "Natalie, I didn't see it," he said, breathless. "I didn't mean." "Just stop," she snapped. "You ruin everything. Every time." He winced, and for a moment she felt a flicker of guilt. But then he opened his mouth again and she braced for another argument. Instead he said something that startled her. "I really am sorry." She turned to face him, and that was when she noticed it. His eyes. They were the exact same shade as hers. A stormy blue with a thin ring of gold around the pupil. It was a rare color, one she'd only ever seen in the mirror. She stared at him, and for the first time she felt something other than irritation. He felt recognition. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. She shook her head. No reason. But the thought wouldn't let her mind rest. Over the next few days she couldn't shake it. The eye color. The shape of his smile. The way they both scrunched their noses when annoyed. The way they argued, not like strangers but like people who shared the same stubborn streak. It was ridiculous. Impossible. And yet, her parents had always been vague about the years after she was born. They'd struggled financially, emotionally. They'd said it was a hard time, a phrase that covered everything and explained nothing. She'd never questioned it until now. Curiosity turned into obsession. She dug through old family papers, birth certificates, medical records, anything she could find. She searched through public adoption records, cross-referencing dates and locations. And then, tucked inside a dusty box in her parents' attic, she found a thin manila folder with a name she didn't recognize. A baby boy. Born 2 years after her. Given up for adoption. Her breath caught. Her hands shook. She confronted her parents that evening, folder in hand. They exchanged a look. A long, heavy, heartbreaking look, and she knew before they said a word. "Yes," her mother whispered. "You had a brother." Natalie felt the world tilt. They explained everything. The financial hardship, the emotional strain, the impossible decision they'd made. They'd wanted to tell her, they said, but the years slipped by and the truth became heavier, harder to face. She barely slept that night. The next morning she texted Lucas and asked him to meet her at the park. He agreed, though his reply was cautious, as if he expected another argument. He arrived wearing a guarded expression, hands shoved in his pockets. "What's this about?" Natalie didn't speak. She simply handed him the folder. He frowned, opened it, and began to read. His eyes moved slowly, then faster, then stopped altogether. He looked up at her, confusion and disbelief warring on his face. "Natalie, What is this? It's you, she whispered. It's us. He shook his head. No. No, that's insane. I thought so too, she said. But look at the dates. The hospital. The adoption agency. And your birth name. Lucas, it matches. He stared at the papers again, his breathing uneven. This can't be real. It is, she said softly. I asked my parents. They confirmed it. Silence stretched between them, thick and trembling. Then his face crumpled. Natalie stepped forward instinctively and he didn't pull away. He fell into her arms and she wrapped hers around him, holding him as he shook. Tears soaked her shoulder. Her own tears fell freely. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't know. I didn't either, she whispered. But I'm sorry too. For every stupid fight. For every awful thing I said. They clung to each other, two people who had spent years pushing each other away without understanding why they were drawn together in the first place. When they finally pulled apart, Lucas wiped his eyes and let out a shaky laugh. We really did act like siblings. Natalie smiled through her tears. Turns out everyone else figured it out before we did. They sat on the park bench for hours talking about everything and nothing. Their childhoods, their quirks, the strange sense of familiarity they'd always ignored. The anger between them dissolved, replaced by something warmer, deeper, and infinitely more precious. They weren't enemies. They weren't rivals. They were family. And for the first time, Natalie felt like she had found a missing piece of herself. One she never knew she'd lost. Subscribe to the channel for more audio stories.